I saw it in 1991. I was already in my 20s. You know, I know it means a lot to people who see it when they're a kid, but even at that age, I just thought it was the most beautiful and kind of perfect movie. The question becomes, why remake something that's perfect? You know, that's a whole other thing. But I think it was my love of that film. I think it's dramatically, it's so powerful. You know, and I think all of us feel like the Beast at some point or another. You know, so I think that's a way that I certainly connected to it, you know, and the great kind of resolution of it, you know, the fact that he finds kind of the way to his own humanity, I think is such a beautiful, beautiful story.
Papa?
Belle, you must leave here. This castle is alive.
Who's there?
Do you wish to take your father's place?
Come into the light.
It really was the first modern Disney heroine, Disney princess, you know, who doesn't want to be a princess, who doesn't really care about finding the prince. You know, someone who's more interested in books and seeing the world and kind of figuring out who she is than in finding a guy and getting married. She happens to do those things by the end, but it's not because that's her main interest, you know. So that was really, you know, a bit of a cultural leap. Certainly in the world of children's stories, you know, and I think that's what's so interesting now is it's 25 years later, and it's often things that are slightly revolutionary become, you know, you sort of lose a sense of how groundbreaking they were because they were so influential that they just become part of the culture.
Show me the girl.
Look at her. What if she is the one? The one who'll break the spell? Hello.
You can talk.
Well, of course he can talk.
Hello, pleased to meet you.
How do you distinguish Belle again 25 years later in a live-action way? You know, and I think that was so much a part of the casting of Emma Watson. You know, because I do think of all the actresses her age, of her generation, she is the one who sort of most closely defined with women's issues, you know, her activism at the UN, but in general, it's really become her life's mission, you know. So it was very exciting. You know, I remember writing her a note and kind of pointing out that, you know, choices that actors make in their careers sort of become part of their own autobiography, you know, and that this seemed to have such a great fit in her life that I was hoping she was interested. Turned out she had been interested for years, had been developing her own version of it, and what was then so exciting when she got on board was to work together with her.
I say we kill the beast!
Think of the one thing you've always wanted. Find it in your mind's eye and feel it in your heart.
There's a great relevance in Belle and the treatment of Belle as a Disney heroine, you know, somebody who is not so interested in finding the prince, you know, more interested in developing herself and reading and figuring out what's going on in the world, you know. But also I think the general theme is one that was relevant then, it was relevant when the story was written in the 18th century, and it just keeps taking on new relevance. I think for us today, clearly a reminder that not that we shouldn't be distracted by surface beauty and everything that dazzles, and that real beauty comes from within. I think you know, we're living in another moment where I think that's a message worth imparting, especially to children.
Don't be afraid.
I'm not afraid.
When Belle is leaning over the beast and says, "I love you," finally, I think the challenge was, again, in a human way, to make you think, these two people, there's nobody else for either of them, you know? And what that meant was, it really was an exploration of how, when Belle is walking through that town in that first scene, how did she get there? And I'm not saying we added stuff before that, but as the movie progresses, you understand what it is that led her and her father there, and also what it is that makes her feel like such an outsider. And the same with the prince, not just, boy, he was nasty that one night, but what turned him into that man who deserved to be cursed, you know? So those are the kinds of things that we fill in the film, and that's what excited me about doing it.
Have you really read every one of these books?
Some of them are in Greek.